Hello and welcome to our monthly EDGE webinar. We are glad you're able to join us today. Before we get started, I would like to remind everyone that today's webinar is being recorded and it will be on our ACRO website within 24 hours. Please feel free to turn on your closed captions. And one last thing, but important, is to please go ahead and put your questions for our panelists today in the Q&A using the Q&A feature. You can ask your questions anonymously, but you can ask them at any time as well. And without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Belma. Hi, everyone. Glad to see everybody filtering in here, especially in the middle of summer. We have a really good attendance base so far. I'm Dave Mahaly, the Associate Director, that's the name of it, Associate Director of the International Department here at ACRO, being joined here by a lot of colleagues. We'll go through that later. Today, I'm going to tip my hat to my colleague, Julia Funaki, who's not at this user group, by letting you all know that in addition to being National Caviar Day and Tropical Fruit Day, it's Nelson Mandela Week this week, Nelson Mandela International Week, to be precise. So having a great time. I hope you are as well. I've been told it's a really beautiful day outside today. I haven't tested it for myself, but where I'm in Wisconsin, it's just supposed to be nice. I would like to just let you know that the work that we do here is all supported and driven by the International Standards Council, Education Standards Council, would be the word I would insert in there so that we get the full IESC. But in any case, the chair of said council is Jasmine Saidi-Kunert. She is with us today. We have Nancy Katz is with us today also. Emily Say is with us, and you're used to seeing Robert Watkins. He's not going to be with us today, but Shelby Kearley is here as usual. And let me know if I missed anyone, people. But in any case, the IESC is a completely voluntary group that meets twice a month, but is doing things churning in the background all the time as they research things and go through information and develop the recommendations for the credential advice and work on all the other parts of the text and information within EDGE. They're the kind of last word as far as the credential advice in EDGE goes, and so we really are all working together just to try to keep up with all the changes and everything. And we rely on you to let us know when something might need to be changed or expanded. And let's see, I think I'm going to turn it over to Drew Carlisle here to go through the latest agenda and take it away, Drew.
Thanks, Dave. I knew you didn't forget about me. I knew that was your perfect segue to welcome me in here on this cloudy day here in the New Deal town of Greenbelt, Maryland. If you're unfamiliar with the New Deal towns, Dave, I'm going to make you stay on for just one more second because me and Mr. Mahaly are both close to these. Were experimental towns created by the federal government that were designed to kind of be walkable, and they were built in the 1920s. I'm close to Greenbelt, Maryland, and what's the one you're close to, Dave?
I'm very close to Greendale, Wisconsin. These towns, just for those of you who don't know, were kind of a pet project of Eleanor Roosevelt, designed to have livable, affordable housing with frontage right up toward the street. The original housing plans were all the same, basically, and houses close to the sidewalk and close to the street with a little bit of space with a yard, built on a slab with the crawl space rather than over a basement, just to make construction easier. But yes, The green, the so-called green, what's the name, Drew? The green something communities. Um,
They're the New Deal Greenbelt towns.
yeah,
They were
the
so named
Greenbelt
after
towns.
because Greenbelt was the first and closest to the federal like the capital, and so that's where they got their name from. And Julia, our Ohio representative, who's not here with us, the third is Green Hills, Ohio. So thought that would be a fun little thing to think about. Julia's off on a magic trip. For any of you that have taken vacations, we hope you're having a good one. For any of you that haven't, I feel you. And today we're going to take you on a trip around the world, but we're going to kind of keep it in West Africa. Before we go, I want to run a quick poll to find out who is already an Edge subscriber. I want to know, have you been here to an Edge user group before? I'm curious, like, what segment of the international comparative education evaluation community do you represent? Do you find yourself in right now? Maybe you wear a few different hats depending on if it's before or after 5 p.m. But I just want to know kind of who we have here. We are really grateful that you've taken the time, and every third Thursday, we're going to be here to provide you with these updates, an opportunity for you to ask questions. But as Dave was already mentioning, we like to have your questions coming in continuously. So on each page within Acro Edge, once you're logged in, you're able to submit suggestions to us if we're missing something, if you identify an error, if it's a question about how to evaluate what you're looking at, and it's just a question that you don't understand. This is something that we have other resources for. The Acro Exchange. The Exchange is a place where there's lots of communities. The International Activities community is really where you want to go to ask that question on how to do it. You're going to connect with colleagues. But let's go ahead and close this poll down. And let's see, we got about 92% of the folks that have reported in, so 9 out of 10 of you are already Edge subscribers. Some are not. We do offer a free trial. We get those processed once a week so that you get an opportunity to get in. You and 2 or 3 of your colleagues, you'll fill out their information, and you can see the types of information that's assembled here for you. It is designed to make it easier for you to understand the credentials that a learner is going to present to you, whether they're coming in for admission into your institution, which is, let's go down and jump to question 3, about 81% of our population here, whether they're coming in and submitting this to an evaluation agency. Again, that's about 20% of who we have here. And there's representation from the government as well. Sometimes we will have folks that are able to come in here that are from the ministries from various states around the globe, and it's always great to connect with them and to ensure that we're getting that most up-to-date primary sourced information. It's always better to know that this is the most current information than to think. So Edge is something that we're going to be updating regularly. As you'll see, this is the result of a conversation that has really blossomed out. If you're in the DC area, the corpse flower is about to blossom sometime very soon. I recommend you go check that out if you like bad smells. And for those of you that have not been to one of these Edge user groups with us before, which is about 1 in 4 of you haven't been here before, appreciate your presence today. Hope you come back for another one, and you're in store for a lot of great information. Without any additional delay, let's head to West Africa. And Emily, tell me about the WIAC rating scales. Tell me everything.
Will do. Thanks, Drew. So hello, everyone. I hope you have your coffee sitting next to you because we're going to be going on a tour throughout West Africa. This is a continuation of something we've been working on. So I just wanted to provide a quick recap for those of you who may not have been with us during the last 2 user groups in the last 2 months. So what started it all? I was reporting on changes that we were making in the entry for Liberia in Edge, specifically around the Liberia Senior High School Certificate Examination. And I was attempting to be helpful by explaining that the grading scale for the LSHSCE is not dissimilar to the West African Senior School Certificate Examination, or WASC. They are both 9-point scales. It's just that one is alphanumeric and the other is numeric, but they represent the same things and have the same descriptors. And as such, I had said that the suggested US equivalents would be the same, but our intrepid audience had pointed out that they weren't in fact the same. On to the next slide, please, Belma. Thank you. And pointed out that in fact, the passes D7 and E8 were considered equivalent to a D in EDGE, whereas the 7 and 8 corresponding 7 and 8 were reported as equivalent to a C grade. So what happened was I said, oops, and we at the IASC took it back and reviewed the situation. If you could go on to the next slide. And so what we did was we went back to the basics. We reviewed what D grade represents, which is primarily really an American concept. And then we looked at what these grades represented in the country of study. And we pointed out that the credit passes, which are C4 through C6 or 4 through 6, are the minimum grades required for university entry, whereas the passes, which is D7, D8, 7, and 8, those are the minimum grades required for acknowledgement and recognition on the examination certificates themselves. So we then took that as being the lowest minimum passing grade, because we recognize when we talk about minimum passing, it's not just university alone, but the baseline in general, right? So we talk about junior community colleges, employment, that sort of thing. So we determined that the D grade would not play a role in the suggested US equivalents. We broke it out to pluses and minuses, but that the passes, again, D7, D8, 7, and 8, would be equivalent to the C range. And that's where we landed. On to the next slide. So with that, so we made that determination, and those were the changes for Liberia. But of course, then it begged the question, what about the rest of Anglophone West Africa? What countries
Emily,
are they? Yes, sir.
I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna interrupt you for a second.
Please
You
do.
said oops. What I'm hearing you say is that you decided appropriately when you had better information that you were going to update how you were moving forward. And one thing that we do like to reiterate and emphasize for people is that you are the expert at your institution. You are in that role because you are. They want to empower you to make these decisions to do that. And though they may not always appreciate the answer that you are giving them, when you go back, like Emily's saying, go back to basics, go back to where these documents are issued from. You will determine the answer, and as long as you have developed that internal consistent policy, it's okay to make a change in that policy and implement it moving forward. You don't want to keep making a mistake once you identify it. So it's not really an oops, it's an opportunity to make it even better.
It's an aha.
It's an aha. I like it. I like
Yes.
it. I apologize for interrupting. I just
No, but I thank you for driving home that point, because that is an important takeaway. So back to the recap. Yes, so we identified this for Liberia, but this also meant then for consistency that we also really needed to look at the rest of what was in Anglophone West Africa. So we can see these countries along the coast. They are the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Nigeria, in addition to Liberia. Okay, on to the next slide. So one last orienting slide before we get into it. I have a nice question for you all. Here are 8 qualifications that are real and exist. And my question to you is, which among these can be awarded by the West African Examinations Council, also known as WIAC? If you could place it in the chat, just list the numbers, the corresponding numbers to the qualifications that you believe can be awarded by WIAC. So we have 1, the West African Senior School Certificate; 2, the Senior School Certificate; 3, the Senior Secondary School Certificate; 4, the Liberia Senior High School Certificate, 5, School Certificate, 6, GCE or General Certificate of Education O-levels, 7, Higher School Certificate, and then 8, GCE A-levels. So again, these all are real qualifications that exist. And the question is, which of these can be awarded by the West African Examinations Council? I appreciate the responses that we're getting. Some are saying one's very popular. I think the fact that it starts with the term West African might be a giveaway. Some are adding 4 to that, Liberia Senior High School Certificate. Okay, great. And then some are adding 6, 7, and 8. Excellent. Oh, I love it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, but I'm doubting myself. I appreciate the honesty. 1 continues to be very popular. We have 1 through 7. Wow, with 8 excluded. That's rough. Poor number 8.
And Emily, you mean currently, right? You mean things that are issued currently?
For these qualifications that I'm listing, so they're real, but they are not necessarily all existing now, but did exist at some point. So yes. Oh, Mr. Todd Kovar gets the star. He put all. No, not intentionally tricky. It's a valid question and consideration. Yes, Amy, thank you. All of them. And Kurt, 1 through 8. So yeah, that is the answer. All of these are or were at one point awarded by the West African Examinations Council. So we're going to get into this. Tricky trickster. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. But at least that's one takeaway. And so what we did was we went back, looked at the other 4 West African countries and then the grading scales. And then we had to look at all of these because it's not just the WASC that's awarded by WIAC, but quite a number, as you can see, whether now or previously. And they also offer some that are specific just to one country, like the Liberia Senior High School Certificate. They may offer primary school level certificates or junior high school certificates. So it's not, the bottom line is that it's not just WASC. WIAC does a whole load of stuff. Okay, on to the next slide. So to help us understand why we have so many similar sounding certificate names and why some pre-existed and no longer exist and all that, it's important to understand the history. So all 5 countries except Liberia, so that makes it 4, actually were under the old British system, which is a 13-year system. So that means they had 6 years of primary, 5 years of general secondary leading to the school certificate or O-levels, and we'll get into that more, or an additional 2, making a total of 13 years leading to the higher school certificate or A-levels. And again, all of these were awarded by WIAC. Then what happened was between the late 80s and late 90s, more or less, at different points, depending on the country, they then transitioned over to the now 12-year system. So now all 5 countries are under the 6+3+3 system, and they all now lead to the WASC. So that's the important context to have when it comes to the educational systems of these 5 countries. Thanks. On to the next slide. So again, now this is the current qualification in all 5 countries. They were adopted at different times, but this is present day, also known as WASC, with or without the E at the end of the acronym. And so for this one, it is, as we mentioned, the A1 through F9 grading scale. So we made sure that the one that's without the D grade as the suggested US equivalence, that is now going to be reflected in all 5 countries for WASC in EDGE. On to the next slide. Okay, so that was the West African Senior School Certificate, but we also have the just plain Senior School Certificate.
You see, it's not Emily. It's the whole WIAC system of naming these things. She's not the tricky trickster.
Yes. Thank you, Drew. Thank you. Yes, I'm not the tricky trickster. They are. So we have the Senior School Certificate. So what happened is, for example, in Nigeria, WIAC was awarding the Senior School Certificate, and then they created in Nigeria in 1999 the National Examinations Council NECO Senior School Certificate. And WIAC said, oh no, we are going to then rebrand our senior school certificate as the West African Senior School Certificate so that people do not get confused and immediately can identify the difference. So with the WIAC Senior School Certificate, that was a 1 through 9 grading scale, like the one we saw with the Liberia Senior High School Certificate examination. But with the Senior School Certificate from NECO, it is the alphanumeric A1 through F9. But it's the same grading scales. It just depends on the qualification and I guess awarding body in the Nigerian case. So on to the next slide, just to reconfirm. This is the grading scale now that we are using with the suggested US equivalents. For NECO, it is alphanumeric with the exception of instead of D8, it's E8. But again, it's essentially the same, representing the same thing. And then again, with the plain senior school certificate, without the West Africa before it, it's a grading scale of 1 through 9. Okay, on to the next slide. So we had the West African senior school certificate and the senior school certificate, but there is also the senior secondary school certificate. So that's triple SC. I know. It's not, I didn't do it, but there we have it. And so I just, of course, have to share this all with you guys. Now, this particular credential existed in Ghana only from 1993 to 2007, but was awarded by the West African Examinations Council. They had a different grading scale, the triple SC. It is, or was, from A through E for passing and then F for fail. And then again, we talked about the credit pass and the pass, and we determined that an equivalent US grade of D would not belong here. So we updated it, or are updating it, so that now it is A, B plus B, C plus C, F, rather than a D. So that is the senior secondary school certificate, triple SC, in Ghana only. Thanks, Moa. So now on to the school certificate, just plain school certificate. See, so I'm not lying. They all do exist or did exist at some point in time. So we have the school certificate and the GCE O levels. And as you can see here on the sample documents, they were both, past tense, awarded by the West African Examinations Council. These two qualifications represent the same level of study, which is year 11 general secondary education cycle. The difference is that the school certificate is a group award. And so you needed a minimum of 6 subject passes to get the school certificate. That may have varied in terms of what kinds of variations or permutations, what kind of subject passes, but more or less, bottom line, group award, minimum of 6 subject passes. If the student was not able to achieve the minimum 6 subject passes, then they would get an O-level certificate for the individual subject passes. Or if that person was a private candidate meaning that they were not attached to a specific school. And normally it says private candidate up at the top on the certificate. So that is the difference between when you would see a school certificate versus a GCE O-level back in the day for the 4 countries. Remember, not Liberia, because Liberia was not British pattern. But regardless, it would be the 1 through 9 grading scale. And then finally, thank you everyone for hanging in there with me. Finally, we get to the higher school certificate and the GCE A levels. So very similar in concept to the school certificate and A levels, and O levels, but now at the year 13 conclusion. So the higher school certificate, again, also group award, this time of a general paper and a minimum of 3 principal passes. If they weren't able to achieve that minimum, then A-level certificates would be issued for individual subject passes. But again, you would see here, awarded by the West African Examinations Council. So what do we mean by principal passes? So unlike the school certificate / O levels with the 1 through 9 grading scale, here we have letter grades of A through E for passing. A through E is considered a principal pass. If you received a subsidiary pass, that means it was below A level performance, but equivalent to O level performance. But it's important to note, even though it's passing at the O level, we would not give advanced credit for it like we would for normal A levels, because subsidiary pass is below an A level pass or principal pass. And the thing to note is, if the student did have a higher school certificate or A levels, they would normally be admitted directly into year 2, whereas with the WASC school certificate, etc., senior school certificate, they would be admitted into year 1. Okay, so that was our tour, historical tour of West Africa and grading scales to round everything out. And to celebrate that, all of you sticking with me, we are going to have our final quiz. The final quiz is, what does the word senior mean to you? What does the word senior indicate when you see, for example, senior school certificate versus just school certificate? If you could drop it in the chat again, that would be lovely. And anyone seeking bonus points, what does the word higher mean when you see higher school certificate? Okay, so yes, excellent. The responses are coming in. Because I am so appreciative of you all sticking with me, I am going to provide a hint. If we can go on to the next slide. So for context, I have here repeated all those qualifications that we covered. So we were quite productive in the last 10 minutes or so. So again, we covered West African Senior School Certificate, and then the Senior School Certificate plain, then the Senior Secondary School Certificate, and Liberia Senior High School Certificate. So what does the senior mean in these instances, as opposed to just plain school certificate? Or what does higher mean when you see higher school certificate? So hopefully with this context, this can give you more hints. But yes, so we have folks saying it means upper secondary versus lower secondary. Excellent. Additional year. Excellent. Yes. Upper, it could mean 11th year. Perfect. Yes. Senior means 12th grade. Oh my gosh, Todd, another star for you. Higher means 13th year. Yes. He gets the double stars today. Well done. So yes, if you recall, when we look back, those senior certificates with the term senior, those are representing 12-year systems and its completion of grade 12. School certificate, that is something referring back to the old British pattern system, like the O levels. So that's year 11. And then higher, as opposed to senior, means year 13. So well done, everyone. That was great. And thanks for sticking with me. Hopefully we had some takeaways from this tour of West African grading scales.
My big takeaway that I am going to remember, Emily, is that, so I saw in the chat that guy Drew indicated that this was going to be updated within Edge by the end of this week. So if you're logging in next week, you can expect that the grading scales that you'll see will be reflective of everything that Emily has just mentioned. But at this moment, if you are tuned in live, do not believe that what you see is what will be the same next week. So we have a few of those edits to update, but this is the information that will be reflected. As we were talking about, when there is more information, it is appropriate to implement that. And as happened here, what are all the ripple effects? Because it wasn't just the one one entity that we wound up touching when there was the question. It was, how else is this impactful throughout the rest of Edge? And so this was kind of a fun little research project that we didn't expect to be going down. I don't know what you thought about it, Emily, but thank you for giving me a tour.
We call it the rabbit hole, but yes, it was enjoyable. Thanks.
Well, And so what we were going to talk about is some of the updates that we're doing for y'all. And we'll put the link for where you can access all of these archived webinars. We've actually got a slide coming up about that, and the link, Belma will drop it in, or I will drop it in. But these are the kinds of things that are available for you to come back to at any point. It's the kind of thing that we want you to use as a reference. It's the kind of thing that it's not just these webinars that Acro has available for you. There's webinars, free webinars on a variety of different topics. But for now, let's talk about the ladders. Dave, we've been doing a project where we're trying to make it so that all of the ladders are going to represent common pathways. Not necessarily every pathway, but common pathways, so folks can get an understanding of an education system truly at a glance. Are my eyes a little blurry, or are Newfoundland and Labrador and Ontario a little funny on top there? What do we got going on here?
Indeed, Drew. As I said before, do not adjust your set. These are partially obfuscated or veiled, let's call it, only because number one, Edge is on a subscription basis, but number two, these are all in the process right now, except for a few of them that we managed to knock out this morning between Drew and me. These are all being slightly revised due to the kind of, I'll call it the vagaries of professional program admissions in Canada. Most of you are probably aware that in order to get into a professional, program such as medicine, law, dentistry, veterinary medicine, pharmacy, etc. in Canada, depends on the province, but some programs are 4 years, law is usually 3, but the amount of undergraduate education required to get in could be 2, could be 3, could be 3 or 4, or could be 4 specifically. So you've got 2 plus 3, 2 plus 4, 3 plus 4, 3 or 4 plus 4, 4 plus 4, all these kind of variations on it. And we didn't have that represented satisfactorily in the ladders. So that's our project going forward. We're on a we were on a less aggressive timeline for this, but because we didn't get as much done as we wanted to, we're on a very aggressive timeline now, and we're trying to really get all these ladders up. The base ladders were done. It was
the base ladders were not done with any kind of consistency with how they were put together, and
but it was a monumental project to get those done. And now it's we're just vetting them as fast as we can. So luckily Julia's going to be around most of the summer, and she's going to do my job. I'll just focus on the ladders. But the thing to remember about the ladders, from my perspective, is that we really are trying to show pathways and not every single iteration of something, because it gets quite graphically confusing to try to put all the information in. So the ladders, bottom line, the ladders are meant to propel you to the credential advice if there's a question beyond the length of a program. So if you see, a PharmD from, whatever university, and you see that it's 4 years, but you see that it's coming out of an undergraduate, education box, you'll know to look. And in the credential advice, there will, we hope, be some background on how many years it requires. And so the end result is that the actual entries within Edge are going to be changed too on some of these, because we either don't have the number of years for each program in there, or we have in some cases probably have it incorrectly. I haven't actually ascertained whether that's true, but I'm imagining that we're going to find something that needs to be updated just to make it correct rather than to make it more clear. Drew, say something else. I'm down to man, woman, person, TV.
Well, Dave,
Response.
I appreciate that you've given us kind of that overview, and unintentionally brought us to a great little segue. On the next slide, the thing that we're going to be talking about, well, I guess it's the slide after that. You couldn't think of more things to say? Well, we've got all of these webinars that would give you lots of discussion topics that you could go over. Some of them are ACRO specific, where you're going to have an opportunity to learn more about the budget that's going on, the inner workings. If you're already an ACRO member, many of you already are. And if your institution is an ACRO member, we had a bylaw change that allows an unlimited number of folks to have access to the ACRO membership. Now, I want to be real clear. ACRO membership does not include an Edge subscription. It gets you a discount. It gets you access to lots of other resources. The webinars are free. You can just go to the webinar, the website. Belma put the link in the chat just a few minutes ago. But you can go and you can look at all of these archived webinars for free, and these are typically put up by the end of the week as well. So this is something that you'll have access to, and you can go back and when you remember, a year and a half from now that Emily did that incredible detailed conversation. Ghana, when was that credential that was only issued for 14 years? When that's the kind of thing that we're going to keep, and so you'll be able to go back and reference it. But I mean, you want to learn things about submitting a proposal for the annual meeting, looking at professional development opportunities that you can have here with ACRO. We've got a webinar coming up just in the next couple of days about some tips for how you can go about that process. Hey Shelby, I'm gonna use my hook and I'm gonna magically pull you onto stage and ask you about some proposals and presentations that you've done in the past. Like, how do you see a connection with ACRO providing professional development opportunities for folks?
Well, one of the fellows, the current IESC fellows, Deb Mahmoody, last month spoke about her experience and the benefits of fellowship. And one of the things that you see on this current slide is the tips for submitting a proposal for the annual meeting. One of the things that IESC fellows do as part of their fellowship is they have a slot for the annual meeting. And what they get in addition to being a part of the fellows program is they get mentorship from this year it's 3 mentors. And our job as mentors is to help the fellows to craft a presentation, refine the topic that has been given to them for their fellowship, help them create the proposal that will be given at the annual conference. We don't actually present with them, but what we do is we help the fellows after they develop that proposal, then we help them develop that session, help them figure out what is the best way to present the material at the conference. And then after that is over, we help them figure out, okay, we've done this in person, now let's figure out how to turn this into a white paper that will be useful to the ACRO community. And so I think it's a wonderful opportunity if you've not done any sort of professional development that would allow you to learn how to do that and to give you the opportunity to present at the national level. This is a wonderful way for you to do that and have that mentorship from 2 or 3 professionals who've done this before, who can help you navigate some of the concerns that you may have. So if anybody's interested, the deadline is August 12th for the IESC fellowship. I'd be happy to talk to you about the experience. And I'm sure that Deb and Colleen, when they get back from summer vacation, would be happy to visit with you as well.
Yeah, that's really a great way to think about all of some of the benefits to applying and becoming that IESC fellow. You will get to participate with the IESC when we're getting on the calls, when we're diving into the research that's been done. It's kind of our huddle. Do you know that the huddle was invented originally at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C.? It's the signing, the American Sign Language, the deaf university. and they would huddle so that people couldn't see the signs that they were using. And so with ASL, it was just a wonderful little thing that has been incorporated in other spaces. We huddle up to talk about all of the research we've been doing independently on those twice monthly times where we get together and discuss what the next research opportunities are, what the questions are that have come in from people, where there's sample documents that we're lacking, that because we need to review things that are authentic and verified. There's a lot of process that goes into making sure that we're giving this good information. And that's one of the things that you get when you do obtain that Edge subscription. You're getting volunteer expertise where we get everyone who really does have a bunch of various levels or various degrees and various backgrounds, understanding how these credentials are seen in country, so they can really give good advice on how that should be seen when people are coming for admissions, for immigration purposes. But all of that is what you get when you become an IESE fellow. You get all that expertise, you get it boiled down, and you get to have, well, it's really two on, well, you're speaking directly with the mentor. It's always going to be you and another fellow. So you're not going into this all by yourself. You're not walking into that room with no one at your side. There's two of you that are learning through this process. It is such a good way to move forward and like we were talking about, get your feet wet in presenting in a professional capacity.
And one last thing, usually the mentors, at least one of the mentors is usually able to be at the session with you, and other members of the IESC who will interact with the fellows as well will also be there. Will be there in the room to support you. So there are friendly faces during your presentation. So I know sometimes that's a little nerve-wracking to go into a session where you might not know anybody and are terrified that everybody's going to hate your presentation or whatnot. So at least you'll know that there'll be some friendly IESC faces in the crowd to support you.
Yeah, no matter how unfriendly they may seem in this webinar, I promise you, they are an approachable bunch that really are supportive and want to really help everyone make good decisions moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, I think we're going to do some questions. I mentioned the Acro Exchange earlier. Again, if your institution, your association, your organization, your ministry, wherever you are located, if they already have an Acro membership, you are now eligible to get onto the Acro Exchange, where you have a bunch of different communities that you can join. Again, I suggest the international activities community, because that's where you're going to be able to pose these questions about and post directly to other professionals that have encountered similar questions coming across their desk. If you have a question about Edge specifically, about how it works, I recommend looking at the top of each the top of each window, where you're going to find the user guide and the FAQs. We've gone through a process trying to hone that down and really provide good information for you there. But if you have that content question about how to do it, the international activities is a great opportunity for Acro members to do that. But today, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. What are the questions that we've assembled in the Q&A? I think, Dave, do you have some questions that you can go over?
Absolutely. I'm uniquely qualified to address this first one from Natalie Arajo. Apologies back to you, Natalie, because your question was one of the ones that we kind of sieved out as we went back to make sure we weren't missing things in the Edge customer service emails. The 69 ECTS credit requirement listed there does indeed seem to be a mistake, and we'll get that rectified. That's one of the things we've been doing, is going back and trying to basically make sure that we didn't miss any questions that could be answered. Some of the questions that come into Edge are or people have a beef with, this or that equivalency or whatever. But most of them, including Natalie's questions, are very, excuse me, relevant and valuable questions that help us, improve things, if not correct things. So that's
and Dave, we welcome people that have disagreements with with what the assessment is, but just not liking the how it's assessed isn't enough. Give us the background, give us why, give us the laws, give us the redacted documentation to reference. We cannot review any documents that get submitted that are not redacted. In the interest of maintaining the privacy of the learner, that is not something that we even review. But when you can send in those primary authenticated documents, when you can point to specific laws that these volunteers are able to compare what their perspective and research shows versus this new information, that's how we incorporate and move forward. And folks that do those complete submissions, like Dave was talking about, when Natalie is able to provide that specific example, when people are able to provide a copy of that, a redacted copy of that credential that's not listed within Edge. Those are the types of submissions that that the volunteers that are working, we're all on the same team. We're doing the webinar, but we're all on the same team here. We're all working together to just make sure that there's good information so that learners can continue on those pathways.
Indeed. Thanks, Drew. As for the next question from Yuki Watanabe Rojas, this is a tough one, and I wonder.
No, I can answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Logro Destacado versus the Esperado and all that stuff. Go ahead, Shelby.
Yeah, actually, we have already discussed this at a previous Edge webinar. I believe it was in January or February. And I did not follow up with Drew after that was over to make sure that the update that we voted on and approved had been added. So we'll visit with him after today's webinar and get that updated. But to answer your question, Yuki, you are correct that the Ministerio de Educación in Peru has changed the grading scale used at the secondary level. It was implemented in stages, so you may see mixed scales. So what we have recommended be added to the Peruvian grading scale page in Edge is we're going to leave the 20-point number scale, because you are going to see those for older credentials. And then there is going to be a second scale for the letter grade or the letter evaluation system that you're referring to. So the AD or the Logro Destacado, we recommend an A for that grade. For the A or the Logro Esperado, which is expected achievement, we recommend a B. For the grade of B, en proceso or in process, we recommend a grade of C. And then for C and initial, we recommend a grade of F, because that's not considered to be a passing grade. That implementation of that grading scale was expected to start 2022, 2023 for all levels of secondary. So I'm glad to see that you've actually got one that does show that it was implemented. And I would be delighted if you could send a redacted copy of that so that we can potentially add that to Edge so that people can see what that would look like.
Great.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Shelby.
I'm glad you remember things, Shelby.
How do you do that?
I know
have to
that you
write
were
it
involved in
down.
that discussion, but yeah, it tickled something deep in the recess. I knew that we had covered it. Wait a minute. We have another question coming in. I was almost going to repeat the old joke that I used to hear from my grandfather about the man who wrestled a bear and kept saying, stop or I'll let go. I was going to let you go, but we do have a question from Susan Eklund. Is there any time that ACRA could list different types of baccalaureate diplomas in some of the Francophone Africa countries? For example, state diploma for technical education versus the baccalaureate. Absolutely. Anybody want to expand on that one? These are projects that usually get taken on by one person or another, and we do kind of a comprehensive workup. So, we'd be talking about Benin and, Cameroon and all sorts of different places and having some kind of a list as well as updating the individual credentials. I don't know if anyone has anything to add, feel free.
Any just general thoughts about the baccalaureate versus Shelby?
Well, I was going to say, I know that that's been a work in progress, and it's kind of grown and morphed as we look deeper into the country. So that is something that we are working on. I don't exactly know when that's going to be finished because the person that has been primarily working on those is not with us today. So stay tuned. But I still get those confused as well, 20 years later.
Absolutely. Jasmine, go ahead and chime in on the Quebec question that I missed from the chat. I believe it must be in.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I just kind of was poking around and I saw that there. CEGEP is a little bit close to heart for me because several years ago I was party to the Project for International Education Research workshops. And we studied the education system of Quebec in person, and Quebec was not just Quebec, Canada. And I was assigned to Quebec, but especially focused on CEGEPs, and had the pleasure of meeting with a lot of their administrators and seeing the facilities, and very impressed with these educational institutions. Our attendee, Aletha, has asked the question about whether admission can be based on the DES, which is the Diplôme d'études secondaires, which is the Diploma of Secondary Education, or is the CEGEP, completion of the CEGEP, which is the Collège d'études générales et professionnelles. And this is the kind of vocational and academic two-year programs, typically two-year programs that are after the 11-year secondary education. And it's sort of a bridge between secondary and first year of university. So Aletha is asking if a student can get in with the DES, is that acceptable? When we base the EDGE credential advice, we look to see what is the standard admission criteria in that country, and in this case, in that province. And universities in Quebec require completion of CEGEP for admission. They require the Diplôme d'études collégiales, which is a collegiate diploma from a CEGEP. Very seldom, but it is possible, a student with a DES, a secondary school diploma, may be granted admission, but they have to maintain a very high general average. I believe it's about 90%. And the universities, kind of keep a high bar on this, because this individual is typically about a year or so younger than the average student that is getting admitted to undergraduate. So they have to be really, an excellent caliber individual. The DES, in terms of what we have in EDGE credential advice, represents completion of 11 years of schooling. In order to be admitted into a university, we recommend completion of CEGEP because we are following what the standards are within the Quebec system of education. And typically, academic cycles for a CEGEP diploma are 2 years, and those that are in more of a kind of a stretch vocational, which tends to be, let's say, nursing, or let's say something that's in a medical technology related, they could be about 3 years. These individuals, when they're admitted to the university, that's when they can then pursue their undergraduate studies, and they complete it within 3 years. If a student comes from a province in Canada that doesn't offer CEGEP, but they've done a 12-year secondary system, or they're an international student with a 12-year system, they are admissible to the undergraduate programs at universities in Quebec, and they complete a 4-year program. So if we backtrack, this is why if someone presents a diploma from CEGEP, not only do they receive recognition of full high school completion, but they also are recognized for 1 year of post-secondary or advanced standing credit, which together with their 3-year bachelor meets the requirements for a US bachelor degree comparability. So that's kind of CEGEP and how the Quebecois deal with this credential and how we address it in Acro Edge.
Thank you, Jasmine. That
My pleasure.
Yeah, that is interesting. Quebec is one of the ladders that that Dave and I are going to be updating in the very near future. You know, once we started on one of those provinces, we just kind of wanted to take the train all the way across, which seems like would be a fun thing to go do one day. Right now, at this very moment, Robert Watkins, who sometimes joins us, he is at the International Institute that's taking place in Washington, D.C. And it's a place where there's live in-person instruction that's going on. You can find more information out about various institutes that we offer. Historically, you might have heard of the Summer and Winter Institute. They are just institutes now. Their dates change depending on when the most when it's most advantageous for everyone to be able to meet. Right now is a great time to be able to come into Washington, D.C. I know I mentioned it was 100 degrees, but it was a great way that you can get over here and see a lot and learn a lot with talking about direct. There's information on specific systems, on specific former education systems and how that has influenced. You know, we were talking about Francophone Africa, the way that you can see the influence of the former colonizer in the current education system, and those distinctions and how you need to understand that. Those are the kinds of things that you might learn at an international institute. But Dave, what are the parting messages that we want to go over for what those benefits are to being an ACRO member? And then I say we give them a couple minutes back.
Absolutely. I was afraid we were going to get a question on what do you do if somebody's only done the first year of a SAGEP, but we're going to save that for another time, as I believe we've actually addressed that at a previous webinar. Anyway, with the new open enrollment model that ACRO has implemented, membership benefits essentially flow down to all members of an institution, all employees rather, so that it's no longer, you know, paying for this person or that person or the other person. If you have institutional membership, the membership is benefits are available to basically all staff in those offices. Very important discounts as far as the annual meeting attendance, important discounts on Edge for sure. As we know, Edge is kind of expensive when you're trying to, you know, justify one more thing in your budget, along with all your other memberships and conference presentations and things. But I think, you know, now I've already eaten up 2 of those bonus minutes. We should let everyone go and enjoy the summer. I'm going to stick my head out the door and say that I was outside today. We thank you all for attending. We'll see you next month. I think it's on the 15th, August 15th, which is the 3rd Thursday in August.
Yeah, next month is the earliest that we could possibly have it. So it's the soonest that we could see you, maintaining our existing schedule. Like we say, you know, we like to take those best practices and move them forward into the future. And a best practice that I really like that we have is the ability to have a spirited debate, the ability to have spirited disagreements that don't result in anybody getting hurt. I think that that's a great message that we can all take forward. I love you all.
Bye-bye.